Until yesterday, there were at least 3 Americans unlawfully detained in Russia. Paul Whelan, a former Marine, arrested on espionage charges. Mark Fogel, a 61-year-old history teacher, arrested for possessing a small amount of medical marijuana. And Brittney Griner, a young anti-American lady basketball player, arrested for the same crime, for the marijuana. 2 of those people are still stuck doing hard labor in Russia. One gets to go home. Can you guess which one?
Brittney is an incomparable athlete, a 2-time Olympic gold medalist for Team USA. She endured mistreatment and a show trial in Russia with characteristic grit and incredible dignity. She represents the best America, best about America, just across the board, everything about her.
The best about America, just across the board. Brittney Griner, the lady basketball player whose only noteworthy activities to date have been playing a sport that no one watches, protesting the Star-Spangled Banner at that sport, refusing to show up on the court for the national anthem, and trying to sneak pot into Russia. Brittney Griner represents the best, the very best of America, apparently. Not the history teacher, not the Marine, the dope-smoking, America-hating WNBA person whose release the U.S. was so desperate to secure that it agreed to release the world's most notorious arms dealer back to Russia in exchange. Too bad for the Marine, too bad for the history teacher, but the pot-smoking basketball lady who hates the Star-Spangled Banner, she gets to go home. Who are those people? The one who's getting the most play right now is Paul Whelan. He is this Marine who actually spoke with CNN by phone around this release of Brittney Griner, basically saying, hey guys, hey Biden, you mind, what gives, man?
They've always considered me to be at a higher level than other criminals of my sort. And for whatever reason, I'm treated differently than another individual here from a Western country that's also on a charge of espionage. So even though we're both here for espionage, I'm treated much differently than he is. And my treatment is also much different than others held for espionage at other prisons. I would say that if a message could go to President Biden that, this is a precarious situation that needs to be resolved quickly. And I would hope that he and his administration would do everything they could to get me home, regardless of the price they might have to pay at this point.
So the guy's desperate. He's been in a Russian prison now for 4 years, I think it is. Unlike Brittney Griner, who was there for about 9-10 months. And he's saying, guys, you really got to get me out of here. And he says, I'm being treated differently than the other prisoners. He's here in a charge of espionage. The reaction from everybody demanding his release has been to laugh at this charge of espionage and say, this is totally trumped up nonsense from Vladimir Putin to use a political pawn to, but I actually don't know. I mean, maybe the guy's a spy. I think to make a stronger argument for his release, we should take seriously the possibility that he's a spy. He's got a military background. He went in and out of Russia a whole lot of times in the last few years. He apparently had contacts at the FSB, which is the Russian security service. So let's just say for a second that he's a spy. And I'm not declaring that he is. I don't know. There's also a lot of evidence that he was not a spy. The CIA denies that Paul Whelan was a spy because his military record was pretty spotty. And the agency is saying nobody who had all this kind of terrible conduct in the military and who was demoted and had all these issues, nobody with that kind of a background would be hired as a spy by the CIA. I don't know. I mean, I can see why Russians might be under the impression that the guy's a spy. But my point is, let's say that he is a spy. Let's say that this guy's James freaking Bond, and he's very, very high value. We just gave up a guy who's also extremely high value. The guy that we just gave up is known as the Merchant of Death. Okay, the guy that we just gave up, Victor Bout, is the most notorious arms dealer in the world. Russia really, really, really wanted to secure this guy's release. And so let's say Paul Whelan is the biggest super spy in the history of the world. Joe Biden still should have secured his release. We gave up a really, really big Russian asset in exchange for what? a lady basketball player who was opportunistically taken hostage by the Russians as a pawn because of this issue right now over the war in Ukraine, and because the United States was putting all of these sanctions on Russia, and because Russia wanted some leverage. Okay, I don't even like Brittney Griner. Okay, but it's clear that her detainment had a political aspect too. Yes, she violated the laws of Russia. Yes, Russia has the right to its own drug laws. No, I don't really have all that much sympathy with Brittney Griner trying to sneak drugs into Russia. But obviously this detainment was political. Obviously it was pretty flimsy. And so what kind of deal does Joe Biden make? The deal he makes is, we'll give you a very, very, very high value asset that has done very, very, very bad things and are going to be very valuable to Russia in exchange for this lady basketball player. But you can keep our Marine, you can keep our history teacher. It's just on its face, even if you believe all of the Russian charges against these two Americans who remain detained, it's just a terrible, terrible deal. I know what you're thinking. Michael, you Adonis, you just hunk of beautiful manhood. How do you stay looking so fresh and young and sexy? Let's just call it like it is. Well, my friends, I'm here to tell you about Genucel skincare. I love these guys. I totally trust these guys. I'm very skeptical of a lot of products designed to keep you looking good and looking healthy and vibrant. I am not skeptical of Genucel skincare. I absolutely adore this product. Now through Christmas, Genucel's most popular package is 70% off. This includes 2 months worth of Genucel's bestsellers, plus their hyaluronic acid serum for free with your purchase. I, in particular, listen, I don't sleep. The only things I ever drink are black coffee and tea and occasionally some adult beverages. I smoke cigars. I stay up late. My under-eye bags need all the help that they can get. Genucel has a marvelous product for that and so much else. Genucel uses a proprietary base with clinical levels of botanical extracts, which come together to yield amazing results. Right now, go to genucel.com/Knowles. Use code Knowles for an additional 10% off your order. Plus, every order is instantly upgraded to free express shipping. That is genucel.com/Knowles, K-N-O-W-L-E-S, genucel.com/Knowles. The guy they got is cartoonishly villainous. Take a listen. This was from a 60 Minutes interview over who Victor Bout is.
Victor Bout, in my eyes, is one of the most dangerous men on the face of the earth.
On the face of the earth.
Without a doubt.
Mike Braun, the former chief of operations for the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration, told us Bout first exploded on the scene in war-torn West Africa in the late 1980s. Elevating bloody conflicts from machetes and single-shot rifles to
AK-47s, not by the thousands, but by the tens of thousands.
So he weaponizes civil war in Africa.
He transformed these young adolescent warriors into insidious, mindless, maniacally driven killing machines that operated with assembly line efficiencies.
Now 43, Bout from the Soviet Republic of Tajikistan is a mystery man who reportedly served in the Soviet Air Force and Intelligence Service. The U.S. has indicted him on 4 terror-related charges, including conspiracy to kill Americans.
So not a great guy. You know, kind of a bad hombre. And they make this trade. Why did the White House make this trade? We all know why. The White House made this trade because Brittney Griner is a liberal black lesbian. That's why. And in fact, the White House basically admitted as much. In the big announcement, you had Karine Jean-Pierre talking about how important this is, not only for all Americans, but especially for the LGBT LMNOP community. And it's so, so important that we get this lady back. And Biden was always going to cut any deal that he could to get her back, not because of any particular national interest in bringing this lady back over other detained Americans, but because it looks really good to the Democrat base and because it's very, very politically correct. And the important part here is that Vladimir Putin knew that. The Russians knew that too. You would not have seen this kind of a deal, this kind of a weak deal under Donald Trump. But Putin knew that they would get it under Joe Biden because the Russians have always been very good at understanding the fault lines in American politics on race, on sex, on everything. And so they knew that they would get it, and they just ripped us off, okay? If it had been, okay, we release the arms dealer and they release Brittney Griner and Paul Whelan, or and Paul Whelan and Mark Vogel or something like that. That would have been one thing, but that's not what we got. Not what we got at all. And so we had the handoff here. And the funniest part about the handoff is you get the two planes landing in Abu Dhabi, and you get the guys walking up with Victor Boot, and you get actually just one guy walking up with Victor Boot. I mean, he's a pretty tough hombre. He can handle himself. Then you get multiple guys walking up with Brittney Griner. And then they're sort of shaking hands there on the tarmac, you see, with the guy. And then there's a film cut. So you see Victor Boot, he shakes hands with one of his handlers, shakes hands with another handler, and then he kind of leans. And then there's this cut. And it occurred to me, they cut the footage of when Brittney Griner shakes hands with the notorious Russian arms dealer known as the Merchant of Death. As they said, that really messes up our image here. That's really going to play into conservatives' hands. If they already don't have a particularly high opinion of this lady, because the only thing she's known for is getting detained by the Russians and disrespecting America. And then you lean and you see her shaking hands with a guy known as the Merchant of Death. So even that, they bungle it. It's just an absolute embarrassment. Another embarrassment for Joe Biden and for the United States. Very, very frustrating. This is Fake Headline Friday. I need your help to help me beat Ben Davies. He has given me 4 real headlines, 1 fake headline. I need you to help me get this headline correct. So head on over right now. If you're not a member, click the link in the description and join us.